Greetings to John. This is Aridif. Before going into the co-creation with the channeled state, Rob has, of course, not remembered the idea, therefore we have no access. If you are able to share what the theme of this day, then of course we'll co-create a start of that conversation as well.
Thank you so much, Aridif. It's lovely to talk to you.
Of course, it is truly our greatest excitement to speak with you as well.
Thank you. So, the topic is people would like to know about open contact on the earth. And specifically, as a starting point, the curiosity was around the potential for training in contact centers around contact.
Yes, of course. Then, of course, we will start the transmission for this query in one moment after hydrating Rob's throat. Greetings to all. This is Aridif. That is Aridif, and this is its spell. We understand all of you desire to speak more about contact and co-creation with that of open forms of contact, co-creating at multiple levels, not only in a physical and interactive sense, but in a greater collective sense in that way. But before diving in to this topic, there are two things that we wish to express. The first, above and beyond all things that are expressed in this day, to know, to feel, and to perceive that you are loved in our perspective is of the utmost importance. Secondly, it is our greatest excitement, and within the same form of great excitement in which we co-create with all of you, collectively, singularly, and in form of co-creation as a collective consciousness as well. Now, going into the idea and concept itself of open contact, we have spoken many times of this idea, understanding and knowing that as a human consciousness who desires contact, it must be initiated first internally. The internal contact is the gateway to manifest external and large collective contact in that way, without a singular co-creation within your own mind, within your own emotional body, or within your soul and essence itself. Then that collective form of contact becomes less manifestable as a portion of your own society and as a singular individual who desires a greater collective of open contact itself. So starting with your internal co-creation of contacting yourself as an individual, knowing yourself, understanding yourself, perceiving yourself, and implementing what understandings that you hold about yourself in a way that manifests external things that you also desire to manifest, is to understand and know yourself. And in order to manifest something in the magnitude of open contact, the understanding of oneself must be at high levels comparative to that of the collective consciousness. Now, every human understands and knows themselves to a certain degree. They can understand how they react in the world. They can understand how they interact with others in the world. But truly knowing yourself is understanding the barriers that you have created within yourself, resistances, beliefs, thoughts, programming that creates barriers to creating the most natural version of yourself available. And when all of you work upon doing this, this is when contact internally can occur. Now, of course, we have also shared myriad times in your experience that contact first should be done with the higher fractal consciousness if you are desiring interactive or inner active experiences of co-creation, the higher self being the pathway to the greater universe. It is very important to work in that way to guarantee that the co-creation of external consciousness inbound towards your own is that of resonance and harmony instead of that of disassociation, disconnection, or lack of harmony and dissidence, that energy being an important aspect of how you co-create with external consciousness. Now, this is true whether it be individual creation or mass creation of open contact. What we mean by this is those of you who are in touch truly with yourself and who have harmony within your understanding of oneself would create getting to know a consciousness also that can be in harmony with you. And in a collective, many humans who are in harmony, who co-create external and open contact in a very physical way, would require that vibration of harmony to manifest harmony in the external co-creation. Those of you who are disharmonious internally may create an experience of disharmonious co-creation. We are not saying negative beings. We are not meaning malevolent consciousness. What we mean is the way that you interpret that contact could be altered drastically. We also mean that, of course, you can co-create with entities whose intentions are also disharmonious to what you desire, manifest. So singular contact, vitally important for that, a massive contact and co-creation and connection in various ways. So it is important for that first step to be achieved, truly understanding and knowing oneself in order to understand and know that of the greater universe. Now, when you speak of connections and co-creation with external consciousness, with extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings, what is most important for most of you is that physical co-creation of open contact, whether it be individualized or whether it be en masse. Now, we understand the importance of this for many of you. What cannot be seen, what cannot be touched, may only be a figment of said imagination or an experience that is truly internal, but mentally created as an external. And what we have shared about this a myriad of times previously is that it does not matter if that entity is external or internal, because once you understand truly and know truly yourself, you'll understand the difference between an external projection of your consciousness versus that of a true interaction with external consciousness as well. So understanding yourself unlocks all of the pathways for contact to occur. Now, speaking of open contact, there are a myriad of ways that you can work in open contact. Most of it starts in the very basis of community, and we know that for several years, Rob himself has shared what we have shared with him of contact in community and working with those who are in alignment with your highest levels of excitement and your greater desires and actions. And when you do so, it creates a collaborative form of energy, a collective within a collective consciousness, and that collective energy grows and expands and manifests more quickly. So, of course, starting these pockets of experiential energy can be one of the greater ways to work with contact. It is much easier for external physical interactions to occur on individual or small group basis to start. That is unlockable at any moment. You are able to do so now if you truly desire. Now, the collective sort of mass and open contact only occurs when that threshold of conscious integration is passed, where a larger percentage of humans are open to that experience, and whether they understand that that experience specifically is what they want or not. The intention behind their desires is what would unlock and unfold that mass contact. For example, if enough humans were simply tired of working within the confines of human governmental structures, if enough humans were tired of working with the way that Earth works and only desire to co-create outside of the normal human thinking conditions, then a threshold of desire for intention of change would be large enough to introduce that level, even though most humans have very specific outcomes that they desire when working with energy. They express they desire that change to occur through new governments being born, new parties within governmental systems being created, old systems disembarking from what was normal and changing pathways, or simply replacing those old systems and governments. Yet the experience of those who don't have those very specific things in mind, that are simply tired of the way that old systems work, have an open opportunity to manifest something as open contact. Now we understand the nature of how this contact occurs is strictly up to yourselves, and most of you hold the greatest curiosity about how and why and when and where all of that contact can occur. And we have shared repetitively using the word a myriad of times in order to express to all of you the importance on letting go of those queries and simply placing your energy in that co-creation, what excites you most, and creating communities is the fastest way for most of you to experience some level of open contact now, comparative to 2 years, 5 years, 20 years further into the future, where those thresholds for a greater open contact may occur. Now, of course, we understand you also desire to speak of these communities, places, and where open contact can and will occur. One moment we will connect you to an entity that desires to share more about those opening posts and ports of possible open contact. One
Art,
moment.
Art,
Yes,
may I ask you a quick question before you graciously bring this other being in?
yes, of course.
When you, from your perspective, I believe you said that in your perspective, internal, external contact, the form that that takes is not what's important. You talked about when we have a better understanding of ourselves, that that point almost becomes moot. So my first question around that is, how do I phrase this? What is it that we could find out about understanding ourselves that would make that moot? What realization would we have that connecting internally or externally with these other consciousnesses isn't really the point? Does that make sense?
Yes, of course, we understand your query, and the query holds great validity to our greater point as well. The energy of understanding and knowing yourself gives you an opportunity to be happy with your experience, to be content in the experience of earth that you hold. And this is not feeling lack for contact. This is being satiated with the experience at hand, giving you better opportunities to manifest externally for open contact. The energy of earth must be at some level of harmony with itself before you can join that galactic community in that way. So, in that way, it is not that knowing yourself implies there's no requirement to go further, but it does mean in order to get further, the experience that you have must be one that you hold dear to you. And most humans often associate open contact with expansion, excitement, learning new things, but are doing so from a lack of being happy in their physical experience as souls. One cannot create that experience when you are truly looking through the lens of lack.
That makes perfect sense. My final question when you look at an open contact scenario, and you talked about resonance, you talked about the frequency match that's happening when when folks are in that state of as much as possible accepting, enjoying, finding joy and ease in their life in the actual now moment, not feeling like they need contact for a validation, or that means they've passed a threshold. uh, is contact almost a byproduct of that state?
Yes, of course, the joyous form of human beings is the most natural form of human consciousness. The most natural form puts you in the most natural alignment, not only with yourself but with your planet as well. Once you have both that experience of joy and the experience of being within vibrational harmony with your other fellow humans as well as your environment, then of course becoming a part of the galactic community becomes a byproduct indeed.
Thank you so much, Aridif.
Yes, of course, one moment we will connect you. Hello, I'm very happy to be able to speak to you about open contact. My name is Shayla, and I am from the Yayel. Humans know and understand that we as the Yayel are most likely the first beings of contact. We and the Playel and Gauthier and even Sasani beings are within the first waves of contact with humans. This wise Denebian being that brings us together has very valid points about how contact happens, but I want to speak more about once it does and the implications of that. The experience that humans have now comes with many individuals wanting to have a contact experience. And we offer that with humans frequently. We've done it with many of you who are listening. You've seen us in the sky at night. When you're by yourself, you've seen us in the sky at night. When you gather with your friends for contact of fifth kinds, you also meet with us in the sleep states frequently. So this is all already occurring very many times. And we facilitate that experience with humans because this is our job and our part of growth. You've given us the great gift of your DNA and lineage and genes. So we want to help you go through that threshold. The Denemian being speaks to us to speak to you about communities and areas of dominion with these experiences for Earth and on Earth. There are many humans who have very different perspectives on what should happen for these communities locationally, where they should be, if they should be near monuments as the Stonehenge or the Giza pyramids or other places known as vortexes. Some humans think that only the government can work with us first and then allow communication wider. None of these rigid structures have any place for open contact in order for it to be guaranteed. Yes, we can have contact in all of those ways, but it's not essential. The essential experience for us sharing an open contact is humans reaching the level of desire to accept us into their world. And this Denebian being also is shared with you through the experiences that he has shared with us, that there are many resistances there by human beings. Most human beings are having trouble accepting other human beings. Sometimes humans don't like another human because of what they think about world affairs, what coloration their skin is, what religious ideas they practice, other variations of bigotry is a harsh word, but there are levels of that. Definitely, there are barriers between humans, some that are very strong and some that are less. So it isn't judging the actions of other humans as good or bad necessarily. It's the anger at other humans or the hatred to other humans for things that hatred shouldn't be given for. And we don't have an emotional context for hatred. We don't feel hatred. We understand hatred. We understand anger because we have your genetics, and we understand through observation of why humans do these things. But the practice of hatred, the actions of humans when engaged in hatred, this is the biggest barrier. So, opening different communities, opening communities that are meant just for contact, this is a very good seed to plant for open contact to begin. There are digital communities that are everywhere. There are some physical communities that have risen in the last 10 years of time to help welcome in an open contact physically. But all of those things are not as important as the humans gathering together physically and acting towards contact. So the inner work needs to be done, yes. The understanding of each other needs to be done, yes. The understanding of yourself needs to be done, yes. But the physical meeting with excitement is the anchoring points for this. So, some human being may buy a great deal of land and say, we are starting a community. But if that community comes under other various community conditions with places that have tried before that unify under one cause but end up being very separate and segregated from other humans, or not willing to accept other humans into their group because of certain variations of beliefs or religion, or one person becoming more important than the others and becoming a leader of the place instead of sharing in the excitement and actions. This would be more ideal to have a true harmony and to have a place of just meeting, gathering, and acceptance, and talking over these precursors for contact, talking over how to get to know yourself best and how to get to know each other best. But as long as there are humans who have open hearts, who release judgment, not discernment, but judgment, and also release fear, these will be the best anchoring points. Energetically, the anchors come down deep into the core of the earth and up into the grid system and become a beacon of acceptance for our community of co creating. And then another community becomes another anchor. And if enough anchors are drawn and enough humans have awareness, that knowing themselves and knowing each other and releasing judgment and opening the heart and wanting to meet with the extraterrestrial energies or extra dimensional energies, this is enough. And all of you can do something like that now. You don't have to move
to a co-op. You don't have to move to a community that way, but just meeting up once a day, once a week, once a month, and putting the intention with each other's hearts into each other, and putting intention with your mind into each other and yourself, and acting with those intentions. This can be the great service of creating hubs. And there will be places like this when open contact becomes manifest. There'll be many places like this when open contact becomes manifest. Even if some are started initially as open contact begins, there will be several places where humans can come together to exchange experiences of what their internal and now external contact felt like. The communication that's been happening for thousands of years with human beings, mostly internal and partially physically, these are all very good grounding energies for the purpose that you might have to explore further into these areas. Going back and reading old testaments to physical contact, and we understand we might have made a pun, but not intentionally. Old scriptures of ancient religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, monotheism, Old Testament versions, or even the Vedic scriptures and other various texts explain very in depth what the physical contact was like. This contact was some that was very positive, some that was very negative for humans. So, understanding that when the earth had very negative intentions or negative mindsets or negative thoughts, they had more negative contact experiences. But when the earth was more in tune with itself and humans with each other, the contact became more positive. So it's important to look at all of these things and place intentions to create in a positive mindset and not one of fear. And this will help anchor. Now, after contact is made, these centers would be. We're trying to find the words. It is very similar to your diplomat programs that you would have, where some of us and some of the humans would come together to speak and talk about open topics. But it's more as a student exchange program where we come to learn from you and you come to learn from us, and communication is made. But we still need that permission from Earth to have that experience. And it won't be from one human saying that it's okay or 1 million humans saying we want you here. It comes from the energy of Earth telling us that you're ready to have us here and you want us here. And that will be the best indicator for us to share and for us to connect with you. I know that there are many ways that humans want to create, and acting on those can be very good as long as you remember the tenets of open heart and releasing judgment and acting on the things that excite you. Following those three tenets will give all of you much greater scope and much greater ability to work with us in a most direct way. And I also want to give the fellow human, John, give you an opportunity to ask things that we may have not considered when we shared.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely wonderful to speak with you, and it's always a joy to connect with the Yahyel family.
It is always a pleasure, and you know our energy well, and through that, it gives me a chance to know yours.
Wonderful. I have many questions, and starting off with what our Denevian friend shared about the state of open contact, the energy and the frequency that helps to facilitate and open that. And your suggestion to us about the tenets of what to focus on, if that's something that we desire. I was thinking about around the question of training in contact centers, and I do wonder if that's an old paradigm. And what I mean by that is anyone listening to this is very excited about contact. They want contact, and our logical human brain says, well, if there are training centers and if there are contact centers, that means open contact is an active thing that's actually happening. But to your point, there's a quote in the Bible which says something to the extent of, whenever two or more gather in your name, they called it a church. But I think, to your point, anytime spontaneously out of an excitement, people gather with the shared excitement of co-creating contact, that's more of what the point is. And if something organically, say a contact center that's more formal is created out of that, it's created from that spontaneous energy and desire in an organic way. I'm not sure if that makes any sense.
It does, and to your point, the energy that relates to an open contact center can be a very beautiful and expressive tool to anchor the energy, or it can be an old paradigm. What would you do with this open contact center? Would you create rules and regulations? Would you create strict membership fee? Would you create a place where only those who don't observe certain religions can join? Would you create a leader to take over all the responsibility to make every decision about the physical space and the rules and regulations that the other humans would follow? If so, you're correct. You're creating an old paradigm. But if you gather together under the guise of working together for open contact and being a beacon where light can be shared with others, some would have just sharing of information. Some would only be excited to share information about previous contact or about experiences in history. Others would be excited for light language representatives to help anchor in vibrations. Others might be open specifically for channel material. Others would be filled with scientists observing landings and physical attributes. It doesn't have to be one way. It can be all different ways. It can be all ways in one area, as long as there's an acceptance for what others want and what others are excited about. But the old paradigm for human thinking often relates that there must be a psychological plan, a mental plan, a physical plan, and all of those things have to occur in a certain way. And this limits the energy tremendously.
Yeah, it makes me feel like there's the potential of the old paradigm is almost to start a new church. And on one level, you and your race might find that humorous, but I don't know that would be particularly exciting to you.
And it would be much less likely for contact to happen through the group that would project that type of energy. Perhaps a singular person or a group of people who are less interested in that may receive more communication or connection in contact. But the church or the old paradigm would create a place only for physical contact to happen. But also, that's the old paradigm. The place is created for creating a space for open contact. And that means even if contact never happened, that the humans there would be happy. They would be excited. They would be doing the things that excite them and that they love. And that opens that probability and the possibility much higher in percents and much higher in likelihood.
And could you talk about that? Because that's something that's fascinating me about this conversation as well. Your perspective, you based on, I think, your level of awareness and frequentially, dimensionally, and density level where you're at, don't have the same physical limitations as we, I guess, create for ourselves. So I imagine it's a much more fluid, fungible, open field of possibilities for you when you look at ways of having contact with this. I imagine it's fun for you to think of creative ways, of different ways that we could create fun, engaging, joyous scenarios and co-creations of contact.
You're correct. It is very fun to explore these ideas, but it's also something we can feel into. Humans are at the level where they feel in to their intuition and to do everything, to find a lover, to find a job, to find a place to live, to find other humans to associate with. All of this comes at some level from intuition. And that is a feeling. Our feelings are much different than that. Our feelings are intuitive, but also are anchored into understanding the fungibility and the malleability of reality itself. So we understand that there are infinite ways that connection of contact can happen for you, but also we feel into those that are stronger with possibilities and stronger with paradigms that are only more easy to manifest. So, yes, there is a playfulness there. There's always a playfulness with us in everything that we do. This is one of the best parts of our version of the human DNA and our race and our collective energy. But finding your way into that is helping find your way into the deeper connection with us. So we want you to come and play, and we want you to come and explore, and we want you to not overthink one possibility, but think a little bit about all of them.
And could you maybe switching gears a little bit? We've talked to some other members of your race, and I've connected with ones that I connect with very deeply personally. And we've had many conversations about this two-way mirror concept. Lonnie Strade, who is a member of your race, who has co-created with us a lot and who gave us the technique at the last channel panel for connection with your race. I've had a conversation with him about this two-way mirror concept, that your ability to see us, whereas we're not necessarily in, I think, the ways many people desire, able to see you as clearly. And obviously there's from the frequential difference in just what we allow ourselves to perceive. But when you look at the planet, when you look at the collective consciousness, when you kind of measure and look at the grid systems and what's happening kind of on an aggregate level with the planet and human consciousness in the framework of when these various forms of contact might come to fruition in those ways, what are some of the things that you consider, knowing that you care about our evolution, knowing that you care about our safety, our mental, not having it be a completely overwhelming or shattering experience for people, like from your perspective and with your human DNA, what are some of the things that you look for when you're kind of looking at this situation?
There's only one dedicated thing that all of us look for, and it's the human acceptance and allowance. And that's the only key that we would measure with. But all the things that we take into consideration are very deeply intimate related to how we understand and know you. Yes, a fear is a thing. Mental and psychological disassociation is a thing that we worry about. The physical traumas that humans hold inside of their DNA is another thing. So all of these things are placed under consideration, but it is only byproduct of you being ready or not being ready. So the one thing that we see that's the template for us to move forward and the threshold for us to move forward is quite different from all of the other parts of you that we consider. Humans have variations of the way that they perceive and think. What could be fun for one of you will be terrifying for the other one, and vice versa. The experiences that you have are so individual, we can't use those individual keys to denote or mark the specific levels of contact acceptability for all of you. So these things are considered, and when working with individual human beings, they're looked at a lot more deeply. But on a collective level, it's just the one thing, it's the readiness and the acceptance of humans to go to that next layer of evolution as what our Denebian friend called galactic community.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, and I imagine it's the same principle, but very different on a global level versus an individual level. I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Drastically different, yes.
And again, the folks who are very likely going to be listening to this, many have had contact experiences, that it is at the forefront of their excitement and desire to have that now and not wait to get some green light because there's mass acceptance of this. Like, that's not necessary. If the desire on an individual level is to have that relationship, then we're all perfectly capable of doing that now.
Yes, all of you are perfectly capable, and all of you are doing that on one level or another. If you're able to hear this conversation, it means that you're within the mindset, the belief system, and the framework that allows contact already. Yes, and this type of contact, like this human's doing, that's been available the whole time. But the next level of contact, the physical interactions and sightings of our ships as we go by, that's been very available for several years now in your linear time experience. And then the physical interactions have been available for some time, but much more restricted up until more recently of your time. So, yes, and the levels of unlocking are only becoming easier and easier with the alignment of the human mind and the human experience of the psychology and beliefs and actions. Yes.
May I ask you a question? In your experience, if humans perceive you when you're in a ship and they have a conscious recognition that that's a Yahyel ship, perhaps they're energetically, telepathically connecting with you on some level, do you consider that a physical contact? Or when you also are perfectly capable of co-creating in a room with me right now, that's can you talk about the difference like some of the different parameters around that?
Yes, the physical contact means anytime that we appear in your dimension and that you experience us physically. So the first level is a sighting from us in the sky. Even if you don't connect to our energy or know that it's us, just a human simply seeing it go by them and recognizing that's not a satellite, that's not a star, that's not an airplane, that is a ship, that is a UFO. That is the very first layer of contact in a physical sense. And all things after that are also a physical interaction. When you start recognizing that it's a Yayel ship, or when you start recognizing or having a telepathic link, or when you start recognizing as we get closer. And the more recognition that humans have, the closer the ships come to you. Most humans just see us going very high, elevated, near the external surface of atmosphere, over 70,000 feet in the air. And most humans do that because they're not ready for closer contact. So that's a very easy threshold for many humans to connect with, even without the beliefs or without the understandings there. The more physical that we interact, yes, you understand very well how physical interactions can happen. You have had an experience where it was quite physical and quite interactive, not with a ship, but with an individual consciousness, with a being who can come into your room or connect with you physically. And this happens also, not as frequently, not nearly as frequently. The amount and percentage is minute compared to the visual sightings. But to us, all of that's physical contact. Open contact is different than physical contact. Open contact hasn't happened on Earth yet with your specific generation of humans. That is the contact that most of the humans who understand about these things are thinking about or excited about. The energy offering that we're sharing now is more about open contact, and that's the very last step. And even that has layers and steps where physical contact becomes open contact, and open contact becomes integrated contact. And the levels of that are where ships are flown into cities or down at a site where many people can see. We tried that before. SSANI have tried that before. Your Phoenix Light sightings, this is a much closer, more direct contact level. Some humans have perceived it through other various mass sighting events. And this is in between the last layer of physical interaction and open contact. So the doorway is what humans are passing through right now. And even those layers will be broken down more and understood more once that starts happening.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I wonder if I could ask you about that, because I would imagine that at the point where there was mass conscious contact, that we frequentially in aggregate would have to be at a level where we were at a frequency consistently that we could perceive that in our reality. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's true to the effect of having a permanent experience with us integrated into the society, yes, but to see the ships more regularly, not necessarily. It would require a larger percentage of humans being open and require vibrations to be more stable, but wouldn't require a permanent vibration of harmony on Earth, just to be able to have multiples of these sightings, even within times of weeks or months.
Well, that's interesting because you did bring up, I have had the experience that you're referring to when I did have a sustained physical interaction with a Yayel being I work with really closely. And one of the things that was striking to me, other than it was a phenomenal experience, was how calm I was in that, and how it did not seem outside of bounds in any way. It was a frequency I was able to stay in a frequency band I was able to stay in without really any effort. And yet that's not a frequent experience for me. And part of me thinks it, that if that had happened and it was such a calm, sustained, loving, easy, effortless energy at that time, even though the being said it was taking a lot of his focus to stay, basically to lower his frequency to stay in that co-creation, which is why it had a discrete amount of time. But I would think that was it just that I was peaking at that time, or folks, and the reason I'm asking is not about me, but folks who might be listening who want or really desire a physical contact, did something have to happen frequentially in that for that co-creation to happen that might be a peaking experience? Whereas if it was a sustained frequency for me, I would imagine it would happen much more regularly.
Yes, now that is true. When you're talking about a physical interaction that way, there has to be a sustainability of vibration to be in order to be able to connect or create that way. Yes, there was a peaking of consciousness, there was an openness for the experience, but more than anything, your beliefs were available. Your higher self helped with the connection. The being that you met with helped with that connection. And it was a needed experience for you because of your personal circumstances, having gone through many different experiences of having third eye capacity and then having that backed away from you for some time. Your physiological, biological, energetic changes that happened over that time frame also made you concern yourself or worry that you may not be able to have the abilities that you did before. And this was a co creation showing you that that wasn't true, that you still had that, and you were able to sustain it for that period of time because you have the capacity to hold that vibration. And even though it was a peak experience, yes, if you learn to hold that vibration more frequently and more often, yes, you would have more of those experiences positively.
And you've been very gracious with your time, and thank you for that. It was a truly a gift, and it did all of those things that you mentioned in terms of validation for me, and was absolutely a, a phenomenal experience. If folks who are listening to this want to help facilitate, and I know all of them are, they already are actively doing this, but what are some things that they could perhaps foster or facilitate with themselves in their energy work or meditation that would help encourage or generate that type of frequency?
For a contact of that type, the vibration has to be clear, excitement levels have to be very high, and to work with your higher self and guides to help facilitate that experience. Some of you, very few of you, have the ability to sustain that type of vibration for even a day at a time sometimes, but most humans can't. And so when you have peaks of excitement and joy, just continue to work with your guides, continue to understand yourself, continue to let go of judgments and fears, continue to live in excitement as best as you can for as long as you can, and place intention that you want to meet with more of your guides. There are millions of meditations that have been given through channeled states, that have been given through higher self intuition, that are guided through human mental states. All of these have available techniques to open the energy fields. But that's all it is opening your energy field and chakra fields and your aura body and your energy body and your emotional body. And opening energy just means you're being natural you.
Well, thank you so much. The last question for this evening, I would be remiss in not having the opportunity. But when you look at the timelines now about contact, could you just share from your perspective what you think is likely?
At this time, there's a bit more resistance than what we would have seen 2 years ago, but much less resistance than we can see from 1 month or 1.5 months ago, depending on what parts of resistance. But for contact's sake, we see a spectrum of possibility. The most likely spectrum right now is about 6 years into the future, but there's also very high likelihoods to be 1.5 years of time, and some that are even further out that are still highly likely. So it is the spectrum, and it changes each moment from the time we first started communicating approximately 54 or 55 minutes ago, and into this time where we were on standby listening for the Denevian being to share, that changes by multiple hours in one probability, multiple weeks in another probability, and over a year in another probability. So it is what's created in front of you. And if all of you take that advice and work to create communities and work to share excitements, the shorter timeline becomes more possible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us and participating and offering so much in this co-creation. Thank you for all of your support from your side, for your love for us and your support and your acknowledgement of us and embracing us as family.
It is easy to have the feelings of family, and we'll continue to do that. And we thank all of you as humans who participate in joy and excitement. It brings us closer to that greater contact, being more open, which is very exciting for all of you, but also for us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to connecting with you moving forward.
I am also excited for this for personal communication forward and for group communication forward. Thank you.